Hello stampers and crafters, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's project is this one, and how cute is this little notebook? So before we get started, I just want to quickly talk about what we're talking about this week. So all this week, I'm going to be talking about using products you have, but also the retiring products. So our January to June mini catalog retires June 30th, and a lot of products right now are up to 50% off. So I'm going to be using a few retiring products here, or maybe just one retiring product. I think it's just one. I'm pretty sure this is staying. The dots are staying, but this Flowing Flowers stamp set is not. This is retiring, and this is one of my favorite stamp sets. I actually made my wedding thank you cards with this stamp set. I love it. It's great for beginners because it's so distinctive. You don't have to do a lot of work with it. My thank you cards really only used paper, ink, a paper trimmer, and adhesive, and that was it. So this is perfect if you are just starting out stamping and want a good beginner stamp set. It has a birthday stamp, a thank you, all kinds of different stamps in it. So let's get started on making this notebook. So to start our project, we're only going to need a few things. I have a piece of early espresso here. The measurements for these three are going to be right on your screen. Give you a second to screenshot that or write that down. So I got these notebooks on Amazon. There will be a link in the description of this video for the notebooks. They came in a pack of 10, and they're just little scratch pads, nothing special about them. There's a cardboard back, there is no cover. So I have this piece of the Early Espresso, and it's 7 1/8 this way by 4 inches this way, and it's like 4 1/16. Really, I just put a little bit extra on it just to cover that notebook. And then on the long side here, I scored it at 1 1/2 of an inch. So all I'm going to do is I'm not going to burnish these. I'm just going to fold them over. And the reason I'm not burnishing them is because I don't want them too super crisp. So this is what just fits over our notepad here. And you can see there's just a little 1/8 of an inch, so you can pop that up. And then I have a piece of crumb cake and a piece of Very Vanilla. Both of these are 5 3/4 by 3 3/4. And they're the exact same size for a very specific reason. So let's start our stamping first. We're going to stamp on our crumb cake. I'm going to move that out of the way. And we're going to stamp on our Very Vanilla. So I have this huge background stamp. This is the dry brush background stamp. This is staying. This is in the annual catalog. And for these large stamps, you will need one of our large blacks. This is an F black. So it literally is the size of the stamp, like it's huge. And then I have some crumb cake ink. I'm going to move the Very Vanilla because this can get a little bit messy. It's a huge stamp. So what I like to do with the big stamps is I take my ink pad, open it up, and I like to do this. Because if you do it the other way and you go in like that, it's really hard to see what you already have ink on. It's really hard to see where everything is going. So this way I can ensure I get even ink coverage throughout the whole stamp. So we're going to do a little bit of what I call, well, and I've heard other people say it, tone on tone stamping. So this is crumb cake cardstock, crumb cake ink, and I'm just going to kind of line it up. And you might want to stand for this. I'm going to stand and just line it up and push down. You don't have to push super hard, but this is a humongous stamp. So I just want to make sure that everything is getting inked. So I'm going to lift that off, and you'll notice there's a tiny, tiny bit at the bottom that didn't get stamped. That is okay because this is the exact same size. It will cover it. I'm going to move this out of the way. And then we can stamp, and I'll show you the cool trick I'm going to do here in a minute. But now we can stamp our Very Vanilla. I have my crumb cake again. And I'm going to grab this flower and then the Just a Note. You could do a happy birthday if you were giving this notepad for a gift. So the Just a Note is going to go on an H block, and my little flower I'm going to throw on a D block. And all I'm doing is I'm inking that up, and I believe for that one I stamped off. So what that means is I'm stamping off onto my grid paper, and then I'm going to stamp over here. Stamping onto my cardstock. So you stamp off onto the grid paper, and then onto the cardstock. I'm turning it a little bit as I go. Try to get just like a random flower image. I'm not going to worry too much about this top corner because the technique I'm doing, we're going to be ripping the paper. And then before I get too far down, I do want to stamp my words because I don't want to cover my words with the flowers. So I'm going to stamp it about there. Looks good. Okay, so that is it for our stamping. I'm going to keep this out though. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start about here, and I'm going to gently rip my cardstock, and I'm kind of going at an angle. I'm pulling this part towards me. I feel like that gives kind of the best effect. Now you could save this piece for another notebook because it would go on there perfectly. You would just have a little bit more of this exposed, or you can toss it however you like to stamp. I'm going to toss it. So then this just goes over there because I only wanted for this card, this notebook, I only wanted a little bit of that dry brush exposed, but we're not done yet. So to give it that vintage look, I'm using a sponge, and this is all week is about using what we have. I have a ton of these sponges. Stampin' Up! Used to sell these forever ago. I cut them into quarters and use them to sponge. You can use a blending brush, a sponge dauber, or if you have like an old, not old, I'd probably use a new one. If you have a kitchen sponge lying around, you could use that too. Like I said, this is all about whatever you have lying around, and all I'm doing is I'm just tapping my sponge into my ink, and I'm just flicking on the edges here. And see what it's doing? It's giving this nice, like, almost burnt paper effect. And you can do this in any color. I'm just trying to get where that paper tore. And then I'm going all the way around. And I'm just flicking. If you go straight down, you're gonna get splotches, and we don't want that. So I'm just kind of flicking the edges here. And then after I get how I want it, that looks pretty good to me. I haven't put any more ink on there, so I'm just kind of going over the edges a little bit more, just to give it that nice vintage look. After we do that, I'm going to take this piece and just this corner here, because we're not going to see the rest of it, I'm going to sponge a little bit of that. This is a lot harder to see. It's probably not showing up well on camera, but trust me, in person, it gives a nice effect. And I'm probably just going to go down most of this side because I'm not quite sure where my very vanilla ends. So I'm just going to go down the whole thing. There. So that is it for ink. So I'm going to put my crumb cake away. And now we can put together our notebook. So I'm just going to take some actually I'm going to use liquid glue. I was going to use Seal. Let's use liquid glue. Liquid glue is nice because it gives you a little bit of playtime, a little bit of wiggle room before it's completely set. And since we need pretty much perfect placement for this, I'm going to go ahead and just use the liquid glue. So I'm not putting a ton. I mean, that kind of looks like a lot, but it's okay. And all I'm going to do is just turn this, and I'm lining it up. I'm not pushing down yet. What I like to do is just kind of pick it up and make sure it's all flushed and even. And once it is, then you can push it down, and you can move it a little bit if you notice you're a little bit off. That looks perfect to me. I can't see my Very Vanilla at all. So what I'm going to do now is just push that glue down. And now the only thing left to do is add some embellishment. So I got some ink on that apparently, but I have some of the Brush Metallic Adhesive Back Dots. I'm going to grab my paper piercer. These come, oh, one's kind of broken there. These come in 3 colors, gold, bronze, and like a silver. It's like a silver, but it's not really silver. I don't really know what to call it. I'm just going to grab 3 of these and just kind of find random flowers to stick them to. And that's it for that. You could also use the rustic dots, but I have these, so that's what I'm using. And now I'm going to grab my Early Espresso, grab some seal. Oops, that's not seal. There's my seal. Just run some along the back. And onto my grid paper. A good trick for this is if you get it onto your grid paper, but you want to use your grid paper again, just roll your finger over the seal and it kind of balls up. And then you can just wipe it away and you don't have to worry about sticking things to it. So then I'm just going to line up with that score line up there. There's about a 1/4 inch all the way around a little border. And then what I'm going to use, you could use Seal Plus for this. I wouldn't recommend liquid glue just because the hold isn't as strong. I'm using tear and tape. And I'm putting 1 strip on that first score line. This is going to attach to the back of our notebook. And then I'm putting another strip in that second, I guess, rectangle. And this is going to attach to the top of our notepad. So let me show you. So this is the top of our notepad. This second one is going to attach to that. This is going to attach to the back. So I'm just going to grab my paper piercer. Again, you could use the tip of your scissors, whatever you have. And the first thing we're going to line up is the second one. I found that to be easiest. So what I'm going to do is I set my notepad straight up, and then I just kind of line up the notepad or the cover to the notepad to make sure I can't see any of it. And then I push it down to the top. And then you got to lift up a little bit because there is a little bit, 1/8 of an inch or so on the bottom. So you have to hold it up. And then I just wrap the back part around. There. So now you have a little lip. It lifts up. Perfect. So here's our original, the sample I showed you. And I have a couple other ones to show you. So here's one I made with the flowering tulips, which is retiring. The paper is. The dies and the stamp set are staying, but the flowering tulips paper is retiring. So I made that one. And then I also made this one using the same sentiment from the Flowing Flowers stamp set, but this is the Abstract Beauty paper and the hexagons. And use that. This was my very first one, so I didn't make it quite long enough, but it still works. I thought that was really cute. I like the colors here. So that is how you cover a notebook. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you'd like to see more things from me, please subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and like this video. Leave a comment telling me hello. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much for watching.